Welcome to Real Deep Stuff. We've saved your seat at the table for this conversation. We're so glad you're here. Well, welcome back to Real Deep Stuff. I am so incredibly excited today. I have two very special guests who I don't really think of as guests. I think of as family. They are members of our church, and we have some very special connections that I cannot wait to share about today. So this is Dawn and Pat Hoover this morning. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Kristi.
Morning.
You guys are some of the busiest people I know, and seriously, and I'm so honored that you took the time to come and share something incredibly important that's happening in the world beyond our borders and has effect here at home as well. So without further ado, would you guys like to share how you met or how your journey started, and then I can tell you how we met y'all.
Okay. Don and I actually don't remember meeting each other because we attended high schools that were about 15 miles apart in Mississippi. So we started dating when we were in college. I left after 3 years. I took a shorter route through my curriculum. Don got 2 majors, so he was there 5 years, and so I went to Atlanta. He followed with IBM, and we got married and started our journey together 61 years ago.
61 years?
61 years ago.
Wow,
yeah.
Big congratulations on that. That's awesome.
No.
What's your secret?
Well, first of all, Jesus is our secret. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there are times we started off, we had a pretty rough patch there for a couple of years, but the Lord saw us through it, and He's been faithful through our whole journey. And we haven't always done it exactly right, but He's made up for a lot of
grace.
A lot of grace in this. Yeah, sure has. Yeah.
At only 33 years, I feel so much less
You're
than
just
61.
getting going. The good years are ahead. We've loved retirement. It's been a great journey for us to spend some time doing things we love. Yeah.
And one of those things that you love is serving together.
Yes.
So that's how Bruce and I and our family kind of entered your world, is the world of Kenya and some very specific places and people there. And we took a mission trip with you guys back in 2011 that personally changed us forever. The entire landscape of our future completely changed because, you know, when you're kind of just doing the American grind, it's like, all right, we get 1 or 2 weeks a year for vacation, so which beach is it going to be this time, you know? And that's
Right.
what we were doing, raising kids and taking the vacation to the beach and doing the best we could, rec football and dance lessons, that kind of thing. And then Kenya. And I'll never forget, because we had several team meetings leading up to going, and I'll never forget the one here at the house where I just looked terrified. I had never I'd never been out of the country except to the Bahamas on our honeymoon, and our kids were 10, 12, and 14, so we you know, your first time out of the country to go to Africa is not a small thing.
That's right.
Especially with a 10-year-old. And I remember you telling me, Dawn, years later that you thought after being at our team meeting at the house here, you were like, I'm not sure she's going to get on the plane.
That's right. She had this wide-eyed look on her
She
face,
did.
like,
She did.
is this
And I
really
didn't
happening?
I mean, we were laying out our clothes all over the lawn for neighbors to see and spraying them down with bug repellent and getting yellow fever vaccinations and these things that were completely foreign, pardon the pun, to us. This
Right.
was not like going to the Bahamas or even like England or somewhere. So this was Africa, where there was a lot to learn about how to just safely travel there, and on top of all of our responsibilities, and we just came back wrecked. We were just in every good possible way. We were just bit by the African bug and the mission bug and was like, where are we going next? We left a huge piece of our heart in Kenya. It's still there, and our dream is to get back there. and continue serving those beautiful, beautiful people that we still talk about, dream about, name by name. I mean, each one of us could, my party of 5 could each spend hours talking about the profound impact it had. So I cannot wait. So we did go, and we all came back, and everything went great, not without some hiccups, but that's to be said on anything in life as an adventure. So Dawn, if you could possibly walk us through, like, where you guys, why did you start serving in the first place? How did that happen to your family?
That's interesting. Our son is a pediatric surgeon, and he said, Mom and Dad, I want you to go to Africa. He had been several years earlier with some friends of his from med school, and we said, sure, we'll, but we had no intention of going to Africa. And then in 1997, he said, pack your bags, Mom and Dad, we're going.
For 6 weeks we're going.
We're going for 6 weeks. We said, okay. And we packed our bags, and not knowing what in the world we were getting into, we said yes. And we went. So that was our first trip.
Wow. 6 weeks right out the gate.
That's right.
That's a commitment.
And in fact, we stayed in the guest house there, a nice facility, sort of like a dormitory. And met a team that was doing certification of a generator for the hospital, 10-year certification. And they discovered that I had an electrical engineering degree, and so they said, well, you could help us there with doing the certification of this generator. So I knew enough from electrical engineering not to get myself shocked. And,
it's important.
It's a good thing.
And so that was my first experience there, and then of course began to meet the people and missionaries there at Tenwick Hospital. And as you said earlier, the bug sort of bit us that this is something that we might be interested in coming back to. Mm-hmm. What were your impressions?
Well, we never dreamed we would end up going to Africa. We had just retired in 97, and so it just sounded like an adventure. So we got our shots and did all the preparation, and little did we know that it would start a process of now over the last 26 years. Don's probably been 10 times, and I've probably been 6 or 8 times with different trips. Mostly back with David. That's our son who's the pediatric surgeon. He goes probably every 18 months or so to help train doctors over there. A little bit about Tenwick Hospital. It's a 300-bed hospital in the highlands of Kenya, right on the equator, but it's 6,000 feet in elevation, so beautiful temperature. You wake up in the morning and it's cool, and by noon it may be 75, and and they are equipped for visitors. They have a guest house for doctors to stay, and then Don particularly got real involved with the arm of the hospital that's called Community Health, which at the time was doing a lot of baby immunizations and HIV education, and got to know the director of that ministry, and so it just started a process that our son says a visit to Tenwick causes a hole in your heart, and the only way you feel it is to go back.
I so agree.
Do you agree with
I
that?
so agree because, and I still say, after having been to quite a few places around the world serving, and all of them are wonderful in their own way, there's something very unique about the folks in Kenya.
Yeah, they're
and
so
Africa.
Loving and so warm.
The most gracious, giving, loving.
Yeah.
The minute they lay eyes on you, they love you. And I'm sitting here thinking, I haven't done anything to earn your love. I'm like, wow, that's messed up. You know? But it's an insatiable hole in the heart to just want to keep filling with beautiful people who are so happy and so content. And I'll never forget going to the one house. It was a pastor's house on the side of a mountain with you guys, and walking in, and I just thought, okay, so they like doilies, those little
Yeah.
lace things, they're just everywhere. Okay, they really like their doilies. And I did not know what that meant to them, that afterwards we were told that they put those out for the most special guests and the most special occasion. And they were just everywhere. And I thought, I was so humbled. And how, a lot of them have next to nothing, and yet they're offering us trays of their fresh cut tomatoes, like literally food right out of their hands, that they're like, no, you take it. And I'm like, no, you take it, But the bucket showers, that was fun. Had to learn how to take a 5-gallon bucket shower real quick. It's like the first...
You lather up and then you let the water come.
You got to be super efficient. And like within the first night or two that we were there, I guess the pipes that the water goes through over the fire to heat the shower, I guess something went wrong with that. So Bruce is jumping up on the roof to help them fix that, and I'm just like, oh, please don't fall through the roof. And I have this picture of him, and he's literally glowing. He's so happy. It's almost dark, and he's up there just walking around on this metal tin roof thing, and they're just clanging together the pipes, and they did fix it. But that ear-to-ear smile, it's just, their heart is contagious. The joy is contagious. And so what a joy it is to try to give back in some small way to help them with their needs. So with that, let's talk about what are their needs. What has happened? What are some of the goals and problems and resolutions that they have over there?
One of the things that we got involved with was Riverside Church, which is a church within maybe 5 kilometers of Tenwick Hospital. And we learned that there was a teenage pregnancy crisis during COVID. And during that crisis, many of the young girls got pregnant. And Riverside Church wanted to be a part of ministering to those girls. And so they held sessions for 1,800 of the girls. And then in talking with some of the elders of the church, we determined that they needed some education to teach them some employment skills, so that so many of them, only 2% would go back to school if they became pregnant, and or they would be sold off into menial types of jobs, and so we determined that maybe that we could come up with a computer course that would teach them computer skills, and with those skills they would then have employment opportunity.
May I interject right there for a second? Because when we first started talking about this idea of how to give them the scripture in Jeremiah that talks about a future and a hope, I was hearing about the need from you guys. And I didn't tell you guys this before, but I turned on I don't listen to a lot of news. It's just all bad and sad. But I turned on the national news one night, and they were in Kenya, and they were interviewing girls, completely unrelated to the girls that y'all work with. This was just a journalist out there talking to the girls about what's happened during the pandemic, and they interviewed one of them, and she was pregnant, and she was school age, and that got my attention. I was making dinner, and I just stopped, and I was like, whoa, this is real time, exactly what y'all had said is a problem. And he said, so where do you see your life going from here? And where do you see your future going from here? And she said, I don't have one. I'll have my baby, but I don't have a future anymore.
Some of these girls were 13 years old.
Yes.
I mean, they're young girls that were left unsupervised during this time. And it's just a horrible situation to think that their only choice was being into a forced marriage of some sort, or just trying to get by day.
Yes.
Just little or nothing.
The look of hopelessness in her face, her response was just, it was just almost matter of fact, like she just accepted it. She's like, I don't have one. And that's when I was just like, I am so excited to get this program started that you started to talk about. But I
never knew that story about the national.
No, I didn't either.
If I knew they were doing it, I would have recorded it.
Yeah.
I should probably go back and try to Google that news segment, because I was like, this is verbatim what Dawn and Pat and team have been talking about. And this was completely, Joe Blow journalist with this girl. So, yeah, I wanted to just say that was a complete mirror of that. So, yeah.
And then, Kristi, one of the things that just was so impactful to us, it was that in talking with you, you said, well, I have a friend, and you can remind me exactly how this happened, that has a connection with a Dr. Sharon Jones, and so who teaches women in Charlotte through a nonprofit skills in Microsoft and Excel and Word and that type of thing. And maybe we could talk with her about how she might help us put together some kind of curriculum that would help these girls in Africa. You remember that?
It's seared in my brain, because when God does something bigger than yourself, you just don't forget it. Right. And what he was doing was mind melting me, and I was like, what? And so what happened was my sister was working with Dr. Sharon Jones in a STEM capacity, STEM for girls particularly. I'm going to try to do it. Science, technology, engineering and math. Yes. Because my sister is like all things STEM for kids, and so she was working with a girls program with her here in Charlotte. I had never met Dr. Jones, but Kim just raved about her and was just like, she's just the coolest person. She's so smart. She does all these things. And one night, Donna Hurst and I were talking on the phone about these girls' lot in life and how their life was, I do know in Kenya, they love their babies. They are family-oriented people, and they do not throw their children away. And so these girls were going to have a baby, but now no way to get an education. And I was just like, can we just think outside the box for a minute? Because God it's like he just kept gently pushing me in the back going, think bigger. And I was like, we have so many different types of education in America. You've got public school, private school, technical school, colleges. There's kind of homeschool. There's like endless ways to get an education here. And I was like, is the standard traditional Kenya education the only possible way? And it wasn't me thinking that. It was just this nudge of him going, think bigger. And so Donna and I were just like, this can't be the end, because I am hugely pro education for both boys and girls,
right? And
particularly girls. I'm a girl, and girl power. So and because of what these girls were going to be doing, either sold off for labor or married to who knows who. So we just started saying, is there any possible way there could be an alternative type of education? And I know Donna totally ran with that ball. And next thing you know, God is telling me to talk to Dr. Jones, and I'm like, I've never met her. And that's a little awkward to call someone you've never met and then ask something from them. That is not comfortable.
Right.
And I was just like, I don't know about that. And so, but it was just a compelling and a conviction that you can't resist. Like, I couldn't sleep. And so finally I asked my sister, I was like, all right, I have a really crazy request. This Dr. Jones that you keep talking about, can you give me her contact? I'd like to speak with her. And when I was driving on Independence one day and had her on speaker, I'm like, hey, you don't know me, but I'm Kim's sister. Here's what's going on. Is there any possible way you'd be at all interested? And wow, she couldn't have jumped faster. She was like, I'm in. I'm all in. I mean, I didn't even know what to tell her other than we're dreaming of an alternative education. She's like, I'm in. What do you want? What do you need? I'm doing it. So that's how she came into the picture. It was completely God, totally God, because I didn't even know her.
And from that, she had connections, of course, with some people on her board from Microsoft, and got the teaching curriculum for teaching Microsoft Excel and Word. And we set up Zoom sessions. Carmel Baptist Church stepped into the picture and purchased 15 computers that were then installed in the church there. And they set up a mentoring system through the church to reach out with compassionate care to these girls that many of them needed transportation to the church for the curriculum for the school. And 24 girls began in, I believe the first class was 24 in April of 2021. And from that time, there have now graduated over 200 girls, and now boys are involved in the course, and many of them have come to know the Lord and have joined the church there at Riverside Church, and it's just incredible. We were just there 2 weeks ago, and saw 40 of them in a current class. And they were so excited about the opportunity that was there.
And if we talk about Riverside in particular, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I remember is, as God would have it, His work was already in plan, that they were already in the process of building like a bigger church with a concrete wall that would be safe and secure for the computers. Because when we went there, it was a plywood box.
There was a tin building, remember?
Yes, it was dirt floors.
Yeah.
And when you first said that they were going to host the site for the computers, I thought, really? Because like this is like
Now they have
living.
they built a beautiful church there. Have you seen pictures
Yes,
of it?
Pastor Leonard sends me videos and stuff, and it's got the stained glass, but it's got this security wall around it with the concrete, with the barbed wire, and that was already in play. That was already being built. So it's like God was already like, I got this. You guys gotta just follow my plan. I've taken care of the details.
And then, Kristi, one of the things that we learned just recently that's really exciting is that they have seen this as now an opportunity to expand and reach more girls and guys. And they've been certified by the Kenyan government to offer a diploma for 2-year education. And they're working on that now, and they're going to renovate that initial building that we visited. It was the tin building to become the College of the Spring of Hope. And so it's just incredible.
Sanctified and sanctioned by the government.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, how far can our jaws just fall open? And what God's plan is so much bigger than we could have ever asked or imagined. I was pulling into UPS when you called me and said, I just got to give you an update that the school has now just become an accredited college, and about fell out the car. Like it blows our minds. And I want to just tell, if you don't mind, a real quick 2 things. It matters always, but I think it matters even more personally when you have a personal connection to the people you're serving. They are enough. Just who they are as people are enough to be worthy, to be served and loved and cared for. But when your heartstrings get tied to theirs, there was 2 things. The reason why our family ever considered going on a mission trip at all ever, and then to Kenya, was because terrible with names. I think his first name was Steve, but he wrote the book Jesus MD. He came to our church.
Dr. David Stevens.
Dr. David Stevens, thank you. So he came to church and he spoke that day, and it was that day that he told a story. And wow, as a mom, I have never gotten over hearing it. And shortly, he was serving in Kenya, and he had his own bag of medicine for himself, because we Americans go over there and we can just catch things a lot easier. Right. And even though we
go prepared,
you do. And I always joke that we've had so many vaccines now, we probably glow in the dark for all the things, and nothing bad has happened. We're all good. Everybody's healthy and fine. But he was over there and he saw a woman that was holding a baby, and the baby was really, really sick, like deathly sick. And he said, you know what? I'm going to go to my personal medical bag. I'm going to get out the antibiotics that are for me, and whatever I have in my own stash, I'm going to give it to this baby and help save this baby. And so we ran to his car or truck, whatever he had, grabbed his bag, and when he came back, the baby had died. So the woman at that point, and Dr. Stevens at that point, is mimicking her physical movement. And he gets down on his knees. He said that she walked across the little dirt road with the baby and she got down on her knees, which he did, and she started digging a hole with her hand. And she's digging a hole for her baby to bury her baby by the road. And he's just watching it happen. And she's not crying at all. Like, not at all. There's no emotion on her face. And so he turns to the woman standing next to him, another African woman, and he said, "Why isn't she crying? She's digging a hole for her baby." And the woman says, "This is her 12th baby, and it's the 12th one she's burying. She has no more tears left." And he's telling it in front of church, and he's crying, so we're all crying. And I just thought, that's not right. That's not right. We have got to be able to do something so that doesn't happen again. And even though I didn't know the woman personally, you're just completely connected. Like, no more tears. Burying 12 children. I don't even know how to unpack that. And it was that day in the bulletin where it had all the trips listed, and Kenya was one of them. And I was like, "Bruce, we need to talk." Because this just isn't right. It's not right. So that was the first experience. And then the second one was when we were there, we got to help be a part of, like, a ribbon cutting ceremony, I guess, on a water well that our church had finished. And our family wasn't a part of that project at all, but you guys were so gracious. You're like, "Hey, anybody on the team want to go up and help dedicate the well?"
Got to celebrate with them.
Yeah, I felt really like I cheated, because I was like, I wasn't part of that.
Because I didn't dig anything.
I didn't know about it, but here we are. So we got to go to the top of this mountain where it was, and all these people just started, the village just started coming out from every which way. And I was like, whoa, where do these people, like, I didn't know where they were all coming from. And I looked at one particular, I actually have a picture of her. She's like a young teenager, and she has one of like a baby wrap around her, and she's got a baby up on her chest and wrapped to her. And she was so beautiful. I took a picture of her, and you said to me, because I was kind of captivated just looking at her and how beautiful she was and how pretty that baby was. And you said to me, that baby is probably hers. Because I was thinking from an American perspective, she's the babysitter.
Yeah.
And because she was so young, and the baby is probably hers. And I just was like, oh, it just made it so real. Now it's on my doorstep, and now you can't not do something about it. Because I thought, why is that baby hers? She's way
so
too young.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry to distract, but like I think it makes a difference when you have personal connections, and that young girl has never left me, and neither has that mom. So there we go. So we put all that passion into energy to start our projects. So sorry, Dawn, you can go ahead. Explain what we're doing.
You know, that is really the essence of what has excited us about going, and that is to see the impact on these young girls and on the mentors there at the church that have a part in just demonstrating the love of Christ to the girls.
Well, one of our thrusts as we go on mission is to enable the local church to be the ministering arm, rather than us just flying in as white people to bring a solution. We try to bring resources and what we can in education and money to help the local church, that community, be the ministering arm, the people that really, because they're there when we get on the plane and leave, they're there for the long haul. I mean, that's their community, and I think it speaks powerfully. And one of the reasons that Riverside has prospered and grown to the size church that it is that they've been community minded. They wanted to bring that cup of water in Jesus' name.
100%. In fact, one of the books that you guys had us read before the trip was When Helping Hurts. Mm-hmm. And it's so well framed. When good intentions don't have good results.
That's right.
And the key is to help in a way that whoever it is you're serving will then be self-sustaining. Because, we've all heard of people that go over there, and I won't mention company names, but I know there's a company name that was like offering baby formula for free, and then what happened was the babies kind of got used to the formula, so the mom's milk dried up, and then they pulled out their formula, and now what happens to the babies, or people that in a good intention want to build all these water wells but don't teach them how to maintain them, so then they break and then they're worse off because they got used to clean water. Yeah, so I love that you brought that point up, that it's got to be a way that boots on the ground can continue the work, because we're just there. I always like to say to take a shift. We're just taking a shift.
Yeah.
But, the people that come in are not the show. There should never be a show. There should be a training and then be like, you guys take the ball and run with it. For sure, 100%. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit, Dawn, about, I don't want to get the details wrong, so weren't there care packages made for the girls as well? Like hygiene kits?
Yeah, they had hygiene kits that were given to the girls as a result of just reaching out to them, and also just the compassionate care kind of thing. There were many of them needed food, and so there were meals that were supplied.
And they were given rice and beans to take home, some food.
Right.
They?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes, there was a complete holistic kind of approach to reach not only them but their families. In the process.
I've loved reading the update that you sent of particular testimonies of the girls of what their life was like and what it's like now, and it's completely transformed. And I know, just a short detail, our first compassion sponsored child, our daughter, she was in Uganda, and we picked her because her story was so similar to mine. I'll never forget, it was 1998. We were at a Amy Grant and Stephen Chapman concert, and it's the first time I'd ever heard of compassion, and so you could sponsor a child on intermission, and so we found this little girl. She was 7, and her mom had died. My mom had died. She was didn't have a dad. I didn't have a dad. She was living with her grandmother. I was living with my grandparents when I was a teenager, and I just really resonated with her, and so we chose her, and she we had her until she graduated, and then they said, you know what, she's doing so good. She would like to go to nursing school. Would you continue the sponsorship past the allotted time so she could get that nursing education? We're like, yeah, sure. So she actually wound up becoming a nurse, and now she supports her grandmother and her brother, and she's completely self-sufficient. And that was the tie-in. We went from Dr. Stevens telling us about a woman, then to me seeing a girl in the mountain, and then saying, okay, we actually have a sponsor daughter who actually went through a training program and is now going to be okay. She's going to be fine. So with that, tell us a little bit about with Tenwick Hospital. There's Threads of Hope as well. Could you talk about a little bit about that?
Yes, I wanted to I took one of our senior mission pastors from Carmel Church there 2 weeks ago, and wanted him to get a picture of the ministries there of the hospital, and one of them is Threads of Hope, which is a ministry to women who have been rescued from prostitution and have learning sewing skills. So there's a 10-month course that they attend and go through to learn sewing skills. And upon graduation, they receive a treadle sewing machine because there's out in the communities maybe not power there for a normal sewing machine that we're familiar with. So when we were there, we decided to take chai, which is their tea, to them. Normally, a team will go in and they will treat us with chai, and so we decided to reverse the process, and we took for the 8th class now in process of 6 girls there and a total I think of 47 have graduated in the earlier classes. We took them chai and mandazis, which is a bakery delicacy, and a little package of buttons and zippers and things that they could use for sewing, and then just blessed them and prayed for them, and the joy that we saw on their faces was just incredible. And I could have come home at that point from just being blessed by the trip. And then on another visit, we delivered 4 wheelchairs to a nearby a school that had a school for special needs. So we worked in the morning in assembling these 4 wheelchairs, and then we had the children that were going to receive those chairs come and sit in them and adjust the heights and all of that of the pads so that they would fit. And the principal of the school said, well, they would like to come out and sing to you.
All the children in the school, not
all
just
the children.
those 4.
And so 32 children came out and sat in front of the facility, and we were in front, and we said, well, first of all, well, let us sing to them. So we sang Jesus Loves Me and Jesus Loves You to these children. And then, as the principal said, well, they want to sing to you. And so they did that. They returned the favor. And again, that was one of those visits that just really tugged at your heart, and you just knew that God was at work there in a real neat way with the children. So those were 2 of the things that were just ministries there of the hospital that tug at your heart when you leave.
Tell us about chai time, because you mentioned you brought chai to them, and chai time is very special over there.
It's almost sacred.
Yeah. Walk us through that.
Well, is it 10 o'clock every morning?
Or 9:30 or so.
Everything shuts down, and you'll see them walking from the kitchen with these metal big tea kettles, because everybody has chai, which is their tea with a lot of sugar and milk in it. And in fact, David tells it kind of the funny story that they had to educate them when they first started doing surgery there, that you didn't leave the patient on the table to go for your chai. You had to stick with it until you might have to reschedule this morning if you have, because they would think well, it's chai time. I'm putting everything down. I got to go to chai. So.
Wow. What is there, like, I'm thinking of siesta in Latin cultures is like to go home and be with family.
Right,
and
nap time.
What is the purpose of their chai time?
It's a lot of fellowship. It's a lot of just relationships. Sit and talk to your fellow workers, and but it's a special time for them. Time they look forward to. So
our family loved the chai time.
Yeah.
Just loved chai in general. They still try to find products here in America. They're like, nope, it's just not the same.
Yeah,
and it's scalding hot, right?
Yeah, very hot. That's right.
So that was, since it's a community bonding experience every day, that was probably extra special that y'all brought it to them.
Right, right.
What an olive branch of just love and friendship.
Yeah.
Exactly. They are so relational, as you said earlier, Kristi, that it just and with so little in many cases compared to all the things we have here in the U.S. And so it just enables you to sort of have a reset in terms of what is valued and really important in life.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm thinking about some of the other ministries that Tenwick does. Is they have like a well baby and vaccination checkup program. Is that right?
that used to be big on their agenda for the community health, but now thankfully the government has taken over a lot of the immunization areas, and so but the community health is concentrated a lot on AIDS education and abstinence education, and they do a lot in the community to help communities figure out what resources they have that they can develop to raise their economic status a little bit, so that their lives are not quite so hard. So they've been real successful through the years. And
they call that capacity planning.
Yeah,
where they go into a community where there's really abject poverty, and they don't bring anything with them to give to those individuals in the community. They help them discover what they have and use what they have. And one illustration that our daughter went on one of the capacity planning sessions that so impacted her was the illustration that they spoke and asked them what they had, and maybe each little hut had one chicken. And so if each of them would on 1 week give away and sacrifice one of their eggs to give to each of the others, then the other members would each get an egg from the group, and in the course of time, then they could sell that individual that had the multiple number of eggs, could sell those, buy a chicken, eventually a goat, and it was when you go back over a period of time, 6 months or 9 or 12 months later, it's incredible what has happened in capacity planning as they have shared what they've had with one another. So those are things that community health does, and is so effective.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Working with what you have.
Right.
That's as basic as it gets, and it can be wildly successful.
Right.
I love that. So back to the girls' educational program, working with what they have. They've got computers. They've got teachers that kind of boots on the ground. That talk about that. Are they facilitating the education that's already in place, or are they teaching it themselves? How does that work?
Are they still using Zoom to teach all the courses from here, or some of it?
No, they've downloaded those courses, and so they have with Dr. Sharon Jones, she really was one to teach the teachers, and so they have now teachers there that take those courses that have been downloaded, and they're interactive online from the class. So the girls come in. They have online sessions, let's say for 1 hour or several hours a week, and then they can come in at times in addition to that to do their personal type of education.
To practice.
And to practice, right.
Hone their skills.
And then they have tests that they have to take, of course, that would confirm that they have really learned skills. And so it's become very effective, and Dr. Jones was very, very good at teaching the teachers, so now they can perpetuate the education.
That's fantastic. It kind of like the capacity planning you were just talking about, rather than trying to constantly send American teachers over there. Let's equip the people that are fully capable to do it already there. That's beautiful. Yeah. So now we know it's going to be an accredited college. What are some other hopes and dreams, plans for Spring of Hope going forward?
Well, they just sense that the diploma education is going to give an incredible additional opportunity beyond just some of the basic computer skills to these individuals, and all under the mentorship of the church there that enables them to really receive the joy of the Lord in their education. I guess that's the big dream that they see there.
So they could be competitive in their local market, and then with these technical skills, even on the global market. Honestly. Yeah. Right.
And we're seeing some economic change in that community. Like when we first started going 20 years ago, there would have been very little opportunity for jobs for computer skills. But now there's industry coming in, there's hotels being built, so we think the potential's there that these girls are going to be able to get good paying jobs. So that's our prayer anyway.
Wow, you paint such a beautiful picture of, like, I'm seeing hotels coming up and industries coming up, like literally on the landscape, and thinking like, wow, from an unplanned pregnancy through no fault of their own, through victimization, to and not knowing what will happen to them,
Right.
forced labor or marriage
Right.
at such a young age, to competing for educated and competing for these jobs that will not only sustain them but their babies and probably their families.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, who could have thunk, right?
That's right. Yeah.
What a wild ride
Yeah.
to be on. And how can people be motivated? What can they do to help with this? We have a couple of places to mention. friendsoftenwick.org. I'll put that in the show notes. So Tenwick Hospital. Can you just tell a little bit about what is Tenwick Hospital? Because I think when we think of hospitals, we think of the ones just locally in our community. So how are they different from just like our hospital down the street?
Well, their motto is "We treat, Jesus heals." So that tells you immediately how they're very different, and that their compassionate care comes along with a sharing of the message of the hope of Jesus. So it's the core of what they do. It's the reason these highly skilled doctors, specialists, cardiothoracic surgeons, orthopedic surgeons are willing to go sometimes for 2 weeks, sometimes 2 years, sometimes for a lifetime to minister there. And it has a wonderful reputation throughout Kenya as being a good place to go. It's very different from a hospital. It's all open air, no windows, big wards of no private rooms, big wards of a lot of people. Sometimes we've seen it sometimes during the bad times, like an epidemic of something, like a malaria outbreak or something, where there'd be more than one person in a bed, in fact.
Wow.
So, but it's a beautiful place to serve, and a place that doctors like to go and spend their time, and a good place for if doctors feel called to give some of their education away and some of their skills away in teaching. It's a good place for them to take their families. It's family oriented. There's a compound there, and the children run and play, and our grandkids love to go. They climb trees and they run through the compound and play with the Kenyan children, and it's a pleasant place to take your family, even though you think about going to the depths of Africa as being hard. They're equipped to take care of visiting staff. It's not luxurious, but it's fun. Don't you think it was fun?
Yes, we stayed on the campus.
Yeah.
So we stayed in bunk beds with our family,
Right.
and watching our kids walk hand in hand down the dirt roads with these beautiful African children, just hanging on them
Right.
and wanting to braid our daughter's hair
Yeah.
constantly.
I want to touch your skin.
Wanted to see if this was ash on our skin
Right,
that would rub
rub
off,
off.
you know. Why, and particularly someone so ghostly white like myself. I stick out in pictures, but it was a beautiful, joyful place.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's just smiling and energetic and ready to help. We could share one story of a little girl that back when we were there, and just for privacy, I probably won't mention her name, but I guess at least back in 2011, it was one of the biggest ways a child would die would they'd fall in their fire in their hut.
Right.
Yeah.
The fire was in the middle of the hut, and
Yeah, so I think there's been some education on how to make that safer since then. But so this little girl, 4 years old, fell in the fire and lost her leg. She didn't lose her life like a lot, but she did lose her leg. So she was dragging herself to Riverside, the church, because they were so friendly to her there. And this little girl would just drag herself by herself because no dad. Her mom, I believe, was a prostitute, and she was attracted to Riverside because of how nice everybody was to her. So when we got there, we met her, and Riverside had taken some of the scrap wood from the plywood church kind of makeshift that they had built and made her some homemade crutches. And so at least she could have the dignity of being upright.
Right.
And however, she was just watching all the kids play. She could never run or anything like that. So she was on the sidelines just watching. And so our friends that were also on our team that year, a doctor and a PA, made some phone calls, and they're like, hey, Tenwick, can we help this little girl? And lo and behold, as God would have it, he had a pediatric prosthetic doctor at Tenwick at the same time and said, if you can get her here, we can get her a leg.
Probably that was a visiting doctor that was only there for a window of time.
Yes.
And God just continues to put stories like that together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so the team arranged for her to get to that hospital, and they got her that prosthetic leg, and we saw pictures of her standing and videos of her running with the friends. And I remember catching up with you a few years later, Dawn, and saying, hey, I can't stop thinking about her, because I'm thinking now she's probably 8 or 9 and she's grown.
Yeah.
What has happened to her because she's outgrown her prosthetic leg? And you said they've got her. They're giving her the prosthetic legs that she needs as she grows, and she'll be good. So that whole sustainability
Right.
at the site, in Kenya, Kenyans helping Kenyans, she just needed that initial start for the help. And now she'll have a prosthetic leg that fits for the rest of her life. And the mom saw how well everything was, everybody was treating her at the church and at Tenwick Hospital, which is Jesus-based, that she started coming to church. And then she accepted Christ, and she said, I'm going to stop being a prostitute, and I'm going to learn basket weaving. Like, they basket weave like nobody's business. I mean, there's no one better. And so she found an honorable profession for herself to care for her and her daughter. And that's just one example of Tenwick.
Right.
Yes. And how it's all connected and so beautiful.
And Kristi, that a lot of folks may not realize that Tenwick Hospital is probably one of the larger mission hospitals in Africa, and they have 5 major ministries that are involved. One is the hospital itself with over 1,100 employees, and it's become a teaching sending hospital. Over 30 residents in ortho or OB or neuro, family medicine.
Training
Kenyans, bright Kenyans for those with skills for those specialties. Then one of the leading nursing schools in all of Kenya, and 100% of their graduates this last year, for instance, passed the exams, and which is incredible for a nursing school. And then the chaplaincy school, one of the few mission hospitals that has a chaplaincy school. In fact, they've trained chaplains for over 11 African countries through the chaplaincy school. And then community health, as Pat mentioned earlier, is one of the models for preventive medical care for a mission hospital. And the 5th is ministries of the spouses of the doctors there. And one of the key two of the key ministries that they have really developed and launched is one for teaching the Bible to women. And they have them memorize scripture, and after they memorize a certain amount of scripture, they give them a Bible. And then have done a teach the teachers kind of thing. There are over 2,000 women now that have gone through this course, memorized scripture, gotten their own Bible, and many of those have been developed as teachers that are now teaching others. And then orphanages. There are over 250 orphanages and 5 orphanages surrounding Tenwick Hospital that the spouses of missionaries have supported. So there's that is sort of a 30,000 foot view of Tenwick Hospital. It's a teaching, sending hospital that is with, as Pat said, the the real base of we treat, Jesus heals as the message that is conveyed in a beautiful way.
Tell the story of your conversation with David Khalil, the first chaplain there, at one of the first times we went to.
Yes, I was
walking with him.
Yeah, Ernest Stury, the first doctor there at Tenwick Hospital, shared Jesus with every patient. And as the load increased, he needed help, and so he hired a man named David Khalil, who became the first chaplain. So I have built a friendship and a relationship with David and through multiple visits. And one day we were out walking, and we walk everywhere. You walk everywhere at Tenwick. And I said, David, you seem a little bit discouraged today. What's the dilemma or the problem? He said, well, Don, I'm not making my goal. I said, well, what is your goal? And he said that to lead 5,000 people to Christ this year. And I said, well, and this was like in August of the year. And I said, well, David, how have you done? What have you achieved so far? And he said, just 3,700.
Oh my goodness! just
3,700 this year.
Wow!
And so, in fact, this last two weeks ago, he's retired now, and I invited him to come in for chai to meet Bob Meisel, our missions pastor, and his wife, and we did. And it was just such a delightful. In fact, I reminded him of that story, and he remembered that as we related that to Bob.
Wow, that is amazing. 3,700.
Yeah.
That is, that's impressive. It's impressive to have a heart so dedicated.
So that becomes a part of their medical record.
Wow.
When you look on the chart, what's happening in this patient's life, it'll be noted that this person received Christ in certain days.
Wow.
So that's how the hospital's different. It's different.
Very different because it's offering a healing for the body that we're living in, and then eternal hope and salvation.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And you mentioned working with orphanages, and I think sometimes, personally, I think that people can kind of gloss over the word orphanage and it kind of comes this side note in the head, like, yep, it's an orphanage. But orphanages are made up of orphans, and every one of them matters. And I remember when we went there was a little girl. Oh, I would love to know what she's doing now, because she'd be a teenager now, a late teen. She hid in the shadows. She was so curious. She was too young to go to school, so she kind of hid back and would follow us around, peeking around the corners, and just was so curious, but was so people shy. But our daughter has a gift for going to the one that's different, the one that's left out, the one no one's talking to. She just has a God-given gift for a heart for the one. And so she just kind of started playing, like peeking back, like peekaboo around the corner with her. And
What's her name, Mercy?
Yes,
Yeah, I remember her.
Yeah, and next thing you know, they're best friends.
Right.
And Sarah just brought out all that life and personality of Mercy, and now she's goofy and silly, and Sarah's carrying her on her back and swinging her around and reading books to her. And I just remember thinking, wow, like orphanages are made up of orphans, and orphans are children without parents, and not to be forgotten or left behind. And our work with we helped build a kitchen for one of them.
Oh yeah,
that was fun.
In fact, I was there to see Joseph. You remember Joseph?
I totally remember Joseph.
And and one of the things that Kevin Hurst had helped Joseph with was in his chicken production, to try to get sustainability, to get income. They could sell the eggs, and so there were 20 or 30 chickens, I think, when we were there. We saw over 200 chickens.
What?
There, and I sent Kevin and Donna a picture of the chickens to let them know that their work was effective.
He sells eggs back to the hospital.
Oh,
the hospital
love that.
get all their eggs from Joseph now, and it's
lots. What a symbiotic relationship, right?
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you brought up Joseph, because orphanages are ran by caretakers who are real people who have real families. And I remember,
and this person gets no government help. He just had a heart for taking in orphanages and orphans. I mean, he had started with 1 or 2 or 3, and then he had 6, and then he had 10, and he just couldn't turn these kids away. And he's found over the years how to care for them, and so it's been a good experience to be.
He had a few children, older teens, early 20s. One of his sons was named Eric, and Eric and Ben, our 14-year-old at the time, just really hit it off. Like brothers from another mother. I have a picture of the two of them together. I mean, just like soul brothers. I mean, truly. But I remember just hearing the story that the week before we were going to get there to serve at that one, that Joseph's 21-year-old son, to help raise money for the family, became a picky driver, which is a motorcycle taxi kind of thing. And first day on the job was killed because they didn't have helmets and they weren't properly trained. And here was this 21-year-old life gone because of an accident with the picky. And I just remember thinking, and here's Joseph, he's just lost a son, and he's here serving all these kids that don't have parents, and he continues to love and work hard even at his own great loss and expense.
You remember his mother? The little lady, she's still alive.
She gave me a big hug.
She looked 100 years old when we were there. Oh, she is.
Oh my goodness! I remember her. I have a picture of her. I thought all the lines in her face were just beautiful. I feel like each one of them just told a story. You know, I felt her to be.
She spoke not a word of English, but she was a hugger.
Yes, and her long earlobes that
because
of her heavy earrings. Right. Oh my goodness! Oh wow, just so beautiful. And you know, there's a real need over there. There continues to be an urgent need. And I remember I couldn't believe, again, rarely listen to the news, but learned that the very building that we were in Nairobi when the plane touched down and you got to go through customs, and we were in that low ceiling, hot room packed like sardines for 4 hours trying to get through customs with our team, just because there were so many people and so few workers, that building, I think 4 or 5 years later, was blown up in a terrorist attack. And I thought, my gosh, that we were there. We were in that building that burned down. So the need is real to continue. There's great work being done, but so much more to do. Could you guys speak just for a minute to, I love how Alex always says, speak into a time you will not see. And I know that none of us are promised tomorrow. So whether we're 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, we only have today. So could you speak to the younger generation, the 20s and 30s that are coming up, that seriously COVID messed up a lot of people? I don't think we'll ever know the cost of the mental health that it did. Can I just break for a second just to share my own personal opinion that COVID brought out this weird, personal survivor type of thing in all of us. Like, all of a sudden we're running to our homes, and even with family and friends, don't get near me, don't talk to me, don't breathe on me. You know, it became this matter of I must survive, and that's, a God-given thing to survive so the world can continue. But it became, I personally wrestled during the pandemic of being locked down, of going, as Christians, we're supposed to give our lives away. And now we're told everything we're supposed to do to preserve our life. The mask, the sanitizer, the staying home, all these things. And not to whether to get into all those were right or wrong, but it was just, it became this weird, mental time in history of, protect yourself at all costs. And I really struggled with that, with going, but we're supposed to give our lives away. No greater love that a man lays down his life for his friend. And so that was a hard thing for me to go through during the lockdown of not doing that, to obey the rules and all that. So for 20s and 30s who, us over 50 have a different perspective. We have a longer view of life, more experience, more history, and maybe the pandemic seemed a bit shorter, still at great cost. But for people that are just starting out, what would you say? Why get involved with either Tenwick or Riverside or Threads of Hope or Spring of Hope? Why do that? Why should younger people care? Like, if we're passing the baton to them, why should it matter to them if they're on this side of the pond and trying to figure out their own life?
That's a great question, and one that resonates with me. At 85, I'm really eager.
You are not 85. Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. And you still run, don't you?
Well, I had open heart surgery a year ago, so I'm walking, but I'm getting back to it. So
you're amazing.
As you say that, what would motivate individuals? I think it really goes back to Jesus saying that we are to make disciples of all nations. He said, all authority is given to me in heaven and earth. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations. He wants everyone to know the good news about his love for them and what he has done to offer them the gift of forgiveness and life now and everlasting. And so the joy of life comes, as you said, as we give ourselves away with the good news of why we're doing it. And so that is Pat and I together find so much joy in giving ourselves away, and it's not one of these things that hurts. It really blesses, mm-hmm. and you get the joy out of it as you bless others. That's a motivation that I have, that I want our children, our grandchildren, our friends, and especially those that are coming behind us to grasp that there's where joy is, and it's much deeper than happiness. Mm-hmm. And it's a discovery. It's a life discovery. I'm just now really understanding that, mm-hmm. and it's taken me so long to get there. So I want to help others to get there ahead of when I did.
Exactly. I love that you mentioned joy, because all the mental health data says that, we're just in a depression crisis, mm-hmm. and pretty much everything's going negative. It's just, it feels like all hope is lost and mental health is the premise of this podcast, and I have a huge heart for that. And I love that you said that about joy, because whenever my kids have had a hard time, or myself or my husband or my friends, I always say the same thing. I'm like, if you're having a bad day, go help somebody else.
Yeah.
And your day's going to be better.
Yeah.
Like, just get outside of yourself, outside of your life, and go help somebody else.
Right. Well, we've been eager for our grandchildren to experience just something like this. And it may not be Kenya, it may be in other areas or other parts of the world, but there's something huge about getting out of this culture. Mm-hmm. This American culture where more is better and more is better and better, and just running after things that are not going to provide long-term joy and happiness. And there's something about you get a real reset when you visit other parts of the world, and that things somehow don't matter that much, and you come to value relations. Mm-hmm. And relationships. And I don't know, maybe there are other ways to get that, but I see a great need in our young people and in our grandchildren today to not let the culture shape what they consider what's important.
Absolutely. When we've gone to, I don't know, 6 different countries, and one of them we've been to, it'll be my 5th time this year, so ever since Kenya. And I told a friend of mine, I said, I'm kind of wrecked because I don't feel like I have a home anymore, because when I'm home, I don't want to be here or want to be there with others, wherever there is that God has called. And she says, actually, I don't think it's that you don't have a home anymore here. I think it's that you have a home everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah,
that is
that.
so
Yeah.
well said,
Yeah.
that you leave a piece of you there.
Right.
And leaving that Americanism behind. I mean, I know we're all patriots, God bless America, but there's so much about our culture that is just not healthy and is so me-centered and stuff-centered.
Right.
And when you get out of that, it's like you're breathing for the first time. What's one of the biggest differences you've seen between how we do things here and how they do things there?
Not all of them, but most of the ones that we interacted with, we could see they have found ways to have a lot of joy and happiness without a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then they just seem to be so thankful for what they do have.
Yeah, and willing to share it.
And willing to share it. Yeah, give you a chicken or, you know, that I think has been a big attraction to the people themselves. They're so warm and giving.
You know, just the relationships. It comes back to that over and over again. They value those relationships, and you sort of have a reset. I remember the first time I was there. We were there for, again, 6 weeks, and after sitting out in a rocking chair at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon outside the guest house, after about 2 weeks, I said, you know, I think that these folks over here have got life figured out and we're all messed up in the U.S., you know, because I'm a type A personality and it's a go, go, go kind of thing. And so to sit down and rest and become a friend with those and just have conversation, it was so freeing and so relaxing and so encouraging. It does give you a reset when you get out of this culture.
One of the things for me was on that note, when you're sitting and just in the company of someone, I couldn't get my head around that I was enough. I still struggle with that because it was like, well, it's got to be based on what I can do for you, because in America, we're so performance driven. Right. You are what you produce. Your worth is what you produce. And when you can't produce anymore, you're not worth anything anymore. And for me, it was just like, really? I'm just literally sitting here doing sidewalk chalk with the kids. I'm like, that's enough? I gotta say, it's still something I have to practice in my head.
Well, when we first go, we tell people, you know, if they say they're going to be there at 9, maybe 9:15, maybe 9:30, and they're still on time in their way of thinking. And when you sit down to have a meeting about something, you know, in our American minds, we want to say, okay, point number 1, then let's get these things off our agenda. Here's item 1, 2. They want to talk about how's your mama, how are your babies, how are you? You know, you spend a lot of time, and you think, well, can we just, our American minds, can we get to what we came for? You know,
so we can get on to the next thing.
That's right. So we can learn a lot from the way they do life.
Yes, totally agree. And when you talked about sharing, our sponsor child in Uganda, who is part of Africa as well, every year for her birthday gift, we had an option to send just a little, I mean, seriously, in American dollars, it's not much at all. And every year she'd write to say what she got. Now, what did she do with her birthday money? She bought a new dress for school, because a lot of them, you know, wear uniforms. You have to, you know, a goat for her family. So milk and all of that, and sweets for her friends. Every year. Every year. That's what she bought with it. It was all about sharing.
Yeah.
It's just, it's so many lessons and so much conviction, you know.
True.
So I don't know that it's a huge dent in the American wallet to help support the work over there, because a little bit here goes a long way there.
So true.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So another way would be, so we talked about friendsoftenwick.org, and they can go online and they can read, people can read all for themselves, everything that's going on, and see the pictures. And then you also mentioned World Medical Missions.
True. So anybody that is medical, particularly doctors that want to volunteer, but they can use therapists, physical therapists, and World Medical Missions and they have a website, and you can go on and get information. But they'll do all the logistics for you to plan your trip, to get your tickets, to take care of your transportation when you get there, and they're very skilled at that, and they do that for mission hospitals all over the world, really. But Tenwick's one of the big ones that they send people to. So it's an opportunity to volunteer for 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years.
Wow.
A lifetime, yeah.
And then they try to match the needs of those hospitals around the world with your skills.
Specialty,
and so,
right.
so that there's a matching process that goes on through those applications.
Perfect. I know the oral surgeon here in town that did all 3 of our kids' wisdom teeth. He's excellent. He's just the best. But when you talk about what lights his fire is when he goes overseas every year and gives his skills away, and he does a lot of cleft palate work. And when, you're in that consultation about the wisdom teeth and all that, and then you flip the page, you're like, so where are you going this year? What's happening there? I mean, he's always nice, but like he just lights up.
Yeah.
He's like, that's where the joy is. So all those doctors, nurses too, or just doctors?
Mainly doctors. There is a nursing school there. It's been a little bit harder for nurses to get licensed because they don't want American or other nations' nurses come in and take jobs that Kenyan nurses need to have, and so there's a little bit, but I think that's easing up. You can check with World Medical Missions and see if they have slots open for nurses.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
It's funny, when you guys came over today, you were like, what is the purpose of this? Where are we going? Because I asked y'all to come. Right. And I said basically to give an opportunity for people anywhere in the world to join the journey with support, with financial support, with prayer, education on themselves of what's happening, outside of our own addresses. It's so important to realize there's just, a big world out there that we get the privilege to be a part of.
That's right.
And so this is an opportunity for people to get excited about the medical part, about the community part, and about these girls that are having their babies and getting educated, and a whole new, because it's not just for them, it's for their kids. It's like, this is going to be a generational legacy of education to give these babies that are being born, and an entirely different future in life for them. And it's not that we're asking, because I asked y'all to come, so I'm the one saying, hey, everyone listening, you should give. I'm not afraid to say that. Everybody that's heard this should do something, should give something. We could do something. But it's not that I'm asking for something. I'm asking to join this amazing journey and adventure through financial partnership and education on themselves of everything that's going on in Tenwick and Kenya and Riverside. Because in the end, as we know, when we all go on mission, what happens when we come home? We're the ones that feel really, really blessed.
That's true.
Just like you were saying, Dawn, it gives you great joy. We come home feeling like, gosh, I went there to give something, and I feel like I took.
Right.
That's
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
No doubt.
Came home with new friends, and love, and passion, and joy, and excitement.
I love the verse that says, give and it'll be given to you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, for with the measure you give, it'll be given back to you. And that's just so true. That's exactly what happens.
That's true.
When we go.
I jokingly call that kind of like the boomerang effect, the boomerang blessing, where your intent is to give and then it comes back to you. And that getting back is not the purpose of it. It's just fun. It's just so fun to be a part of something for the greater good.
Right.
And so this has been amazing. Is there anything you guys would like to share as we wrap up?
Kristi, just thank you so much for your inviting us to be a part of this, and we just pray that the Lord will use it and bless in a wonderful way. Thank you again so much.
Y'all have been an inspiration. Is there anything, Pat, from you?
Thank you for having us. We love to talk about this. We, as I said, 26 years ago, we never dreamed that we would still be involved in this ministry, but it's been such a gift to us. It's been such a blessing. Been a great way to keep Don busy in his retirement years.
So maybe you didn't retire, you just shifted
That's
jobs.
right. Yeah.
Which I just met a man, he's 86, and I just finished walking the Camino in Spain, and he and his 83-year-old wife walked it alongside us. Yeah, and I said, what's the secret? And he said, never stop working.
Yeah.
He's like, find what you're passionate about,
Right.
and never stop doing it. It won't be work. So it sounds like you guys have found what you're passionate about and going to do it forever.
Until Jesus comes, maybe.
Well, it's a joy. Bruce and I cannot tell you how much we respect you guys and love you guys. You are mentors to us. Whether or not you knew that, you really are. And we always say we want to be y'all when we grow up. Well, thanks again. I'll put the references in the show notes where people can get more information. We'll be glad to
answer any questions they might have. So.
Yeah, we should do a follow-up in about a year and find out what's happening then. Because this has been moving at breakneck speed.
That's right.
Exactly.
I mean, 2021 is when it all started. It's 2 years later, and now it's going to be a college.
I know, exactly.
Can't wait to see what it's going to be in another 2 years. Well, thanks again, guys. Please come back.
We will. Thank you.
We will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to Real Deep Stuff. Follow us and subscribe to save your seat at the table for the next conversation. Also, check out our Facebook page to continue the conversation on today's topic. We'll see you there.